Let's bring in friend of the show, Jamil Jaffer, founder and executive director of the National Security Institute. Welcome back, Jamil. Now, we have been hearing for a while now that while things haven't been going Putin's way, you could say, in this war, Russia was not using all that it had in its arsenal, militarily speaking. Did we all just get a better idea of what Russia's actually capable of here?
Well, Nick, what we really see here, something we saw early in the war and something we've seen a little bit less of, which are direct strikes on civilians, attacking these targets where they know they're soft targets. Again, this is Putin lashing out. He realizes he's on his back foot, he's backpedaling, and now he's striking again at targets in an effort to weaken the Ukrainian resolve. I don't think it's going to work. The Ukrainians have demonstrated time and time again that they're willing to fight and willing to put the work in that needs to be done. And the West has been backing them. And so hopefully what we'll see here is a redoubling of the Western effort to support Ukraine, more air defense systems like the NASM systems that we just delivered at the end of last month. They need a lot more of those. They need Patriots and the like. And so what we really need to do is now back Ukraine and protect their cities as Vladimir Putin starts to raise up the level of attacks on civilian targets.
So now that would be the time to continue our support. I mean, when he feels like he's backed into a corner, isn't that clearly when he is lashing out the most? He's kind of hinted at any support for Ukraine now is a direct attack on Russia.
Well, of course, the problem here is that this is a war of his own creation, right? He has nobody to blame for his situation, the situation the Russians find themselves in, but himself. And so while it's true that our backing of Ukraine is likely to push back on Putin and allow them to gain an offensive edge, at a minimum, we've got to allow them to defend themselves. In an ideal world, we allow them to get to the point where he has to negotiate a conflict, an end to this conflict. Otherwise, if he keeps succeeding, that's not going to end this conflict. And so him on the back foot is exactly where we want him.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, this recent escalation, this bombing campaign that we just saw, that has even got two nations that so far have kind of steered clear of criticizing their Russian allies, China and India, kind of got them chiming in too, calling for de-escalation. Is that a good thing? Russian key allies obviously crucial when talking about that off-ramp, for example, or is this an ominous sign when even Putin's friends are speaking out saying, hey?
Well, Nick, I think it's obviously beneficial if countries like China that have backed Russia for a long part of this conflict are now speaking up. I don't think Putin is going to sort of ultimately take the counsel from his allies, from those that have backed him. He's under a lot of pressure at home. I think he realizes that if he loses this war or is viewed as losing this war, it could hurt him politically at home. At the same time, he also realizes that staying in this war for a long time and losing doesn't benefit him either. And so he's caught between a rock and a hard place he put himself in. And now I think the time has come for us to really put all effort in behind the Ukrainians and really try to break the back of the Russians and force them to a negotiated settlement. Now's the time to make that happen.
No matter what, Putin, in some ways, could you say, has already won, hasn't he? I mean, he's surely shown Ukraine what happens if they look westward, but look past Ukraine for a moment. He's shown the entire world what happens. Every American filling up gas at the gas pump from Idaho to Vermont to Texas to California, they're feeling it. Germans, people all over across Europe, unsure about how they're going to be heating their homes this winter. Putin has showed he can spark a global food crisis. On top of that, he's making nuclear threats. Jamil, is Putin showing the world what happens if you move the largest military alliance, NATO, near to his borders?
Well, Nick, you're exactly right, but I actually see it the opposite way. I think what Putin has demonstrated is what happens when the U.S. doesn't lead in the world. When we don't make our enemies afraid of us, we don't make our allies know that we've got their back, our enemies lash out. We see it happening in North Korea. We see it happening with Hong Kong and China and Taiwan. And now we've seen it twice with Russia, first in Crimea. When we didn't respond there, they're now in the eastern part of Ukraine trying to press further. So this is what happens when America retreats from the world and says, we're going to stay behind our two oceans, focus in at home, and not lead in the world. So I think it's less about NATO expanding and more about America's lack of leadership over the course of the last three presidents.
Okay, so this isn't a recent problem in terms of what we've done over here on this side. This is something that spans more than a decade in terms of what we haven't done. We haven't been hard enough or put our foot down in terms of drawing a line in the sand. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think it's less about drawing a line in the sand and being clear that we will respond when our allies are attacked and that we will defend ourselves and defend our friends and stop our adversaries from moving out in the world. And so, you look at the Syria red line that President Obama didn't enforce. You saw President Trump's negotiations with the Taliban and with North Korea, right? And you see now President Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan. What the world sees is America on the retreat. And when America's on the retreat, other adversaries press forward. They press forward in Taiwan. They press forward in Hong Kong. They intern 1 million Muslims. With Russia, you see them doing the same thing in Crimea and now Eastern Ukraine. You see Iran going around the region, expanding its efforts, supporting the Houthis in Yemen. When America doesn't lead in the world, this is what happens. We still are a superpower. We have to act like one.
Jamil Jaffer, thank you so much for coming on the show, as always.
Thanks for having me, Nick.
Of course.